Okay, we're going to get started this evening. We've put a bit on the agenda tonight to get through. Starting with our public hearings. First will be a public hearing on the local law number 2 for the noise ordinance. I'd like Mary to read the public notice, please.
The Clermont Town Board will hold a public hearing on local law number 2 of 2018 on the proposal to adopt noise control regulations in the town of Clermont at the June 4th, 2018 Town Board meeting at 6:30 p.m. and local law number 3 of 2018 to amend the present zoning ordinance to include the noise control ordinance at 6:45 p.m. at the Town Hall, 1795 Route 9, Clermont. Any interested persons are invited to attend. The proposed local laws are available to be viewed on the town website at www.clermontny.org, or copies are available at the town hall during the regular hours of the town clerk, Thursdays 6 to 8 p.m. or Saturdays 10 to 12 p.m.
Okay, thank you, Mary. We do have copies available. Some of these were sent out also. Would you like copies? I love copies. Sure.
Get me one, Michael, please. If it's okay, rather than us all popping up.
We have a few copies. We can hand those out. And I will open the floor for the public comment period this time. Anybody want to go first?
That's not true.
Anybody who wants to make comments, please, can you step up to the podium, just state your name and proceed, please.
Turn this off so they can do something.
Hi, I'm Ripley Hathaway. I'm a member of the BAR from the town of Clermont. I've lived in Clermont since 1967. I've been a registered voter here since 1976. And I've had a town position since 1977. I'd like to state, to begin with, that this town has functioned for many decades without a noise ordinance. I personally like the fact that Clermont does not micromanage everyone's business like some other nearby towns. We are a friendly, reasonable town, and as far as I'm aware, noise or noise complaints have, if they exist at all, been an isolated problem. I don't see a need for an ordinance when everyone has mutual respect for their neighbor. However, that being said, I would like to commend the Board of Clermont for a fair and non-biased noise ordinance as it reads now. That weighs the needs of small businesses with the needs of early risers for the quiet enjoyment of their properties. I have listened to the various viewpoints with regard to the beginning of quiet time in this town and would like to answer the one question that opponents of this ordinance, as it is written now, ask. Why isn't the limit 10 p.m. on weekends? Well, personally, I'm a night person, and I think 10 p.m. is a tad early to end an event. But more importantly, there is an economic reason to keep the 11 p.m. limit for weekends. As the owner of a permitted wedding business in this town, I can tell you that if I told couples that they would have to shut down their wedding party at 10 p.m., I would not have one booking. They would just go elsewhere to the other towns in the county where there are either no ordinances or more lenient ones. So, why does it matter whether I book a wedding or not? Because I'm sure you don't think it matters. Because each guest who attends a wedding ends up spending, according to Travel and Leisure magazine, $628 to attend a wedding. And of this, $322 is spent on accommodations. That is $322 going to one of the 20-plus Airbnb rentals in this town. Trust me, all couples ask where they can stay locally. They want to be as close as possible to their venue. The remainder of the average cost of a wedding weekend, $306, is spent in the county in restaurants and shops. Hudson is the mecca for after parties, day of wedding shopping, and Sunday brunch before departing for home. While there are a limited amount of shops in our town, the money guests spend in other parts of the county is returned to our town quarterly in the form of a Columbia County sales tax. Wedding Wire, the #1 organization for market research when it comes to all things wedding, estimates that the amount of money spent in Columbia County, New York for weddings has increased from $9.9 million in 2013 to $10.9 million in 2017. In the same period, the Columbia County sales tax distribution to the town of Clermont has increased from $314,453.31 in 2013 to $371,324.06, or it is up by 18% for the town of Clermont. Members of the bridal party in the Northeast, and that includes New York State, spend an average of $1,070, more than any other region in the country. This means more dollars for local businesses. 1/4 of all couples get married in a place other than where they live. And increasingly, the Hudson River Valley is their destination. At this time, we have 5 permanent venues in this town, to my knowledge, 2 in process, and 1 operating under the radar illegally. Assuming that each venue hosts 10 weddings a year, and that each wedding has 100 guests, we are talking about an additional revenue of $5 million a year. That is 8 times 10 times 100 times that $622 I spoke of that the average wedding guest spends to come for a weekend. And that's just from the town of Clermont's wedding businesses. This money does not include the payments to local residents who may be hired to help with the events, serving as waiters or bartenders or cooks for the caterers or parking attendants, or to maintain the venues throughout the year, or to supply wedding favors such as Towsy honey or Apple's candy from Pot's stand. Millennial couples love to shop and buy local. Personally, my property manager is a resident of the town of Clermont, so is a landscaper I employ year-round to mow my lawns. I have hired another resident to grind tree stumps. Several of my neighbors regularly host wedding guests in their Airbnbs. Local jobs are important to our residents, as is the quarterly sales tax income the town receives. It means that we as residents don't have to pony up as much in taxes, and this helps every resident of the town. Allowing the noise ordinance to pass as is written now is a win-win for all the residents of Clermont. Respectfully submitted, Ripley Hathaway, town resident since 1967. And I have copies for you. Thank you.
So it's safe to say you're in favor of the 11 p.m.?
I favor the 11 p.m. on weekends. I'm not saying during the week.
We'll take a copy of that. Thank you. You have a copy,
May I follow?
okay. Sure, absolutely.
I'm Mike Ripley. I only learned about this earlier today or late yesterday. So
Excuse me, can you just state your name?
I'm sorry.
please?
I'm Dana Perry. I'm co-owner of Southwood Estate, a wedding venue that hosts no more than 12 wedding celebrations per season. The rhythm is basically every other weekend. We instilled our own sound ordinance of 11 p.m. because, as Ripley stated, if it was 10 p.m., most couples would indeed go to another county where they can dance until 11. In the process of getting the permit, of course, we were required to contact all our neighbors, get agreement from them that this activity was happening on the property. They all readily agreed and were quite heartily supportive of this venture. I feel like Ripley really broke down the financials very well. All I'd really like to add is the enthusiasm of our millennial guests, which they are, mostly New Yorkers, Boston, etc., for local products. We use local caterers, we use local service people, we use local parkers, the guests frequent farm stands for picking, florists are local, caterers are local, so there's a lot of employment that is created by these events. Additionally, I hear from many of our guests that they love it so much they'd like to return and either rent a house or stay in a hotel or shop or bring their friends up. So I feel like that's more interest in the area. Tourism is something I have, like Ripley, I have not been here since 1967. However, my family, in-laws, have been here since the late 60s, and we're fairly well known, the Perry family, along that stretch of Woods Road. again, I think Ripley summarized it very well. I agree with her that the 10 p.m. cutoff would affect these businesses in a detrimental fashion. And again, my excitement lies in bringing in local produce, local flowers, local staff, local workers. You know, an event this past weekend bought 30 rooms at the Beekman Arms, which is great. I remember when the hotels had to close down or they weren't really being frequented, there weren't as many restaurants. Now you're seeing active, vibrant businesses that are taking advantage of this, you know, farm to table, local, you know, environmentally conscious attitude. That seems to be what draws them to this area, the unspoiled beauty, the majestic views. I mean, it's unbeatable. There's nothing like this that I know of anywhere in the circumference of New York City. Let me see if I have a few notes here. I just wanted to mention again, the local vendors are invariably farmers, caterers, staff, drivers, buses, tenting, decor, florists, staff. The guests are spending, to reiterate, money on accommodations, gifts, shopping, brunch afterwards, local musicians. We often get musicians from Bard, college, etc. And I'd like to feel that it's a contribution to the community, both financially and socially, in the sense that we're trying to promote the bounty of this area to people from the city who are so terribly deprived of bringing fresh air, blue sky, trees, mountains, river. Let's see if I have any other notes. It's really our concern and our care lies in supporting this community, keeping it vibrant, keeping it growing, getting revenue to the government so that it can be spent for the benefit of us all, and also contributing to the tourism that seems to be happening here. It's pretty visible. They're bringing their dollars here. They're spending it locally. We'd like to think that that's a very positive development for the local community.
Very good. Very good. Thank you for your comments. Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Wickham Boyle. Everybody calls me Wiki. Everybody should do that. I have lived up here in Clermont and Germantown since 1988, on and off, back and forth. I was the director of special projects for New York City for a very long time, in charge of all their festivals and parades, and was well acquainted with the fact that in order to do those things, to bring those very good numbers that you guys just referred to about income and this ripple effect of income was huge in the selling of that. But we also had to be mindful to something that can't really be quantified as carefully, and that is quality of life. You can't put a number on quality of life. What I do for my work now is I'm a writer, and I'm a writer who's very dyslexic, which means I have nearly zero focus. So when it's noisy and it's thumping and it's going, that means that what I do to work is I get up at 4 in the morning. That's not always effective for me to get, takes a lot of coffee to get up at 4 in the morning and get your story in. So what we did with the city and every other place that I've lived is that there are parameters. So that when you think you're going to lose your mind because it's so loud, you know it's going to stop at X. You know it won't start until Y in the morning. You know it won't go above a certain decibel count. We produced New Year's Eve in Central Park, which it was a party for 15,000 people, and we produced it within decibel count because everybody doesn't celebrate the same way. That's what makes us remarkable. We don't do everything the same way. And quality of life, which so many of us have looked to, is one of the reasons why we've come here to, raise our families, to be here full-time, to really commit to being in a very, very small town. And what I worry about, because there was just a large piece of land sold next to me, 100 acres, and there's, you know, Irv's Farm on the other side, which is 150 acres. If somebody wanted to buy those two things and marry them and thump it a thump the whole time, then, you know, the wildlife has changed. When we talk about the beauty of that, it's well documented that the bird life, that the small mammal life is very, very changed. And I think that we need to be able to prescribe how much land can be around it. I mean, I've spent many, many hours in great happiness at Southwood, and you're blessed because you've got so much space. But if somebody doesn't have that much space and still decides that they want to make a business, then without some kind of legal parameter, it can become a free-for-all. And I don't think that that satisfies any of our quality of life. Thank you.
Okay, and next?
Hi, I just have a very short piece.
Sure.
Janet Krause, I've been a resident here since 1990, 28 years. And I want to start by saying that I totally support local businesses, the idea of bringing in events here and having others enjoy what we have come to take for granted for money. It's not a terrible idea at all, it's a good idea. But what I wonder is how it is that 7 of the other Columbia County towns have determined that the noise ordinance, their own noise ordinance, should stop at 10 o'clock as opposed to 11. Are they losing business? Do they have no weddings? Are they mourning the loss of income? I don't know, but I don't think so, because it seems that it's a boom all over the county. So if we all agree that there should be some ordinance, maybe we don't, but it seems that the wedding people do too. I guess I would question why we would opt for 11 instead of 10 when so many of our neighboring towns have opted for 10. You know, I mean, I don't know that that extra hour really sends people into another county. I mean, I think it starts way a little earlier.
Isn't that one of the noise ordinances that I read that electronic stops at 10 and you can have acoustic until later? Am I wrong in that?
Our particular policy is that amplified music ends at 11 on the dot every time.
No, but what I'm
Then
saying.
after that, I would say you may turn down to what do we call cafe level. And that would be like a restaurant where you can converse.
Right, but what I'm saying is, I think that the noise levels that this lady's talking about that are in 7 other counties, where it says 10, the end for amplified music, that it does allow for whatever you call it, cafe or acoustic music after that. And that would be a way of listening clearly decibel counts, which is something that's been done, you know, in many other places without any loss of business. I don't want anyone to lose business. I mean, life is too precarious on every single facet, so we should all, you know.
It's painful to say, but that hour makes a big difference in the decision-making of the couples.
But how come we don't take a study or a moment to be able to say, you say it's a direct cutoff, that there's a correlation between, if we can't go till 11, we lose the business, and this woman whose name I missed.
Janet Krause.
Janet, said that 7 other counties,
Towns,
sorry, have said that they have no loss of business with a 10 o'clock cutoff.
Well, she doesn't know.
We don't know that, but.
She doesn't know that.
I don't know.
Okay, but
Hold on,
would you
hold on,
like-
I don't want to get,
I'd like
I
to
don't
know
want to go
that.
back and forth on this.
That's all. I would just
the
like to
comments
know
come to the board,
that. So maybe you can
please.
find that out, Ray, because everybody will tell you anything.
I mean, that is something we could, you know, we didn't go into a large study on this because we've really vetted this very well. We've had a lot of discussion on it. I think some of the zoning board approvals that they've even stated 11 p.m. on some of the approvals. So if we actually put it down to 10 o'clock, we'd be going against what they approved already.
Yeah, our permit, we went through this process, it states very clearly 11 is the cutoff.
So some of this is already in place.
We already
So
have that.
to keep this simple and, you know, by putting a decimal limit on it, which we felt was very fair, and
I haven't heard that said. Can you please tell me what it is?
75 dBA.
I'm sorry, is that the?
It's really
that's
high.
75 dBA?
The daytime limit
Yeah.
is 75 dBA, and then at 11 PM it has to be 50 dBA.
Oh, no. I don't know.
I have a decibel reader, I agree with you.
Fine, bring it on.
I'll bring it over.
Sarah Tackers, a regular at town
Jane.
meetings.
What were you doing tonight?
Yeah.
How are you, sir?
Well, I'm really grateful for all the work you have done. And when I was here listening at first, when the noise ordinance came, and the town engineer was wonderful explaining to us what dBAs are and what 65 is and so forth. And it looked from all the things we got that 45 dBA is nice, quiet, wonderful, and 65 is reasonable at the property line. So I actually got myself a machine, as we had 2 weddings a week or so ago. I do live on County Route 6, and my property is a little bit elevated, so from the town hall and from the tin barn, where those weddings were, I got good readings on my porch, okay? So, and it goes for a while, and weddings should be fun, and should take whatever time it takes. They can start at 2 o'clock and end at 8, or start at 4 and then end at 11, whatever. So when I checked on the dBA scale, okay, so it was 45, mostly it was in the 50s, and then it went into the 60s, and then 70s, 80s, and 90s dBAs. And it kept at that. It was some, I'm serious, and we can run more tests on this. So I was shocked because it was really loud, and it's not just the slow dance that is at 62, which would be under the 65, but it's the real where you want to engage everybody, and then it gets loud at 84, and then that goes, and one actually peaked at 100, all right, which is painful. And it's not just the dBA. I also want to say in our ordinance we didn't put dBc, which is the boom, the subwoofer. And that thing is, I mean, if you want to get a heart attack, that's those of you who may have go to cities when little cars that are low to the ground have that subwoofer on, your heart rate starts going up. If you have that for a while, it's really unpleasant. So I think what I hear is that no one is against people having businesses and doing well. We are trying to be a community and trying to sustain and help each other. It's a pluribus unum, I think, right? Not the other way around. More people do not have wedding businesses. More people are residents, I think. So how do we find a place? And if we look around the communities here in Columbia County, I think most of them have 65 as the top. And then, there are just occasional things that go over fine, but not for over a certain period of time. Okay? And that's what we have to think about too. We have to think about how things are enforced. Should we, move in a direction that everybody can live with. The 11 o'clock, on weekends, I mean, it's harsh when you come home, and some of us, work and they're not in the wedding business and live next to wedding venues and had a hard week, and it's still at 11 o'clock. It never ends exactly at 11. I don't know.
Except for
I would love to have you
These
take care of what the
11
things.
p.m. it's off, and if they don't
It
turn it off, I'll go
fizzles out.
unplug it.
Yeah. So, and anyway, so just somewhere, and I think the city of New York, where so many people live together, I think they have very clear statements of, this is the limit, and it can go plus this amount, this is inside, and then plus 7 dBA outside. So I think it can still be refined. So, can we figure out some, we want a good legislation. I think it's very important, and that will be my last point, to have a legislation that holds, not one that we have to revisit every, second week or second month because, it does not work. That's not good legislation.
we want to do the best we can do as the town council has shown us and taken the lead on that, but we also as citizens to find where are we comfortable as a whole on this. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Okay. Any other comments? We do have one written comment from a gentleman who cannot be here this evening. Mary, if you'd like to please read that.
Okay. Dear Mr. Stats and members of the town board, I am writing as a follow-up to the April 7, 2018 board meeting. As I have done in the past, I would like to acknowledge my gratitude to the board for time and seriousness with which you have approached the issue of developing a noise ordinance. It is clear that maintaining Clermont as an agricultural and rural community is a concern to the board and in keeping with the historical character of the town. I believe the town's character is best preserved by the designation of 3 time periods, each with an appropriate decibel level. Following the research on best practices, I would like to offer for your consideration the following periods with no distinction for weekends and holidays, as the current draft proposal indicates. Daytime, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., evening time, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., nighttime, 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. These periods would allow for residential and commercial needs of virtually all of the people of Clermont to be addressed and resolved. Hence, the common good of residents would be affirmed and supported. It is important to note that the town of Clermont zoning law document requires the town to act on behalf of, quote, the most restrictive provisions, end quote, or to, quote, impose the highest standards, end quote, for the common good when differences in code guidelines may emerge. See section 1.5 interpretation of provisions. I made this higher standard principle point at our last meeting. It was noted that such a principle has merit when 2 local laws or a local and county law come in conflict. This principle for resolving conflicts is still very much valid and in play when establishing what ought to be the best standard applicable for the law, which is to be implemented whenever 2 conflicting standards are offered. It is clear that the community's common good is best maintained by a conservative approach that maintains the, quote, most restrictive, end quote, and, quote, highest standards, end quote, to the matter under consideration, defining the start of the nighttime period. In the case of establishing a nighttime definition of 10 p.m. versus 11 p.m., the common good is best maintained by the higher standard of 10 p.m. Applying this norm to all days of the week has the added benefit of avoiding needless confusion regarding the application of the new ordinance. Indeed, the draft ordinance refers to a distinction of what defines a week. No such difference between a week and weekend is utilized in any of the current 18 towns of Columbia County, Red Hook, Rhinebeck, or Kingston. In summary, the articulation of the 3 time periods with their respective decibel levels is consistent with the mandate to endorse the highest standards on behalf of the welfare of the community. These time periods preserve the agricultural and rural character of Clermont. Additionally, it should be noted that the agricultural and residential character of the town is clearly reflected in the town of Clermont district map. Virtually 95+% of the town is marked as residential/agricultural land. See Town of Clermont map posted in the meeting room. And 97% of the population of Clermont is captured within those boundaries. Hence, respecting the evening and nighttime decibel levels would respect virtually all of the town residents in a fair and just manner. Thank you for considering my recommendation. I ask that my letter be read into the public hearing on June 4th, since I will not be able to attend the meeting due to a prior family commitment, and out of respect for my faithful participation, discussion, and prior email communication with the board since last winter on this important topic. Sincerely, Anthony Miserandino.
Thank you, Mary. If there's no other public comment on the noise ordinance local law that we're proposing, We do have to, before we close the public hearing, just want to let everybody know, we are going to send this to county planning for their review and input as well. We were hoping to get on the schedule before this so we could actually consider the comments and act on it tonight. We will not be acting on it tonight. We'll wait for their review, their response, then we'll take their response and the comments into consideration, and we will be approving or modifying at the next meeting at this point. So just so everybody knows, we will not be adopting it this evening.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Is one permitted to submit a written comment after having spoken orally? After the fact, or is that window closed?
You'd have to keep
I just didn't have time to prepare. I wanted to say some wording, and I just didn't have time to.
Well, I mean, we're going to close the public hearing because I was not going to leave it open. So if you'd like to submit it, it would just not be included in the public hearing, but you certainly could add it to the notes if you'd like to have it.
You could leave the public hearing open for written comment for a period, a week or something if you want.
Okay. I'd like to send it
It's
to
just a
county.
time
Well, you
thing.
can still
I
send it,
didn't
you
know
can
about
still
it.
send it to county planning, right?
I mean, we could do that. If anybody would like to put in any more written comments at this point.
I would just rather be more articulate. I'll like just less
When is-
preparation.
When is the next meeting?
It'll be July, July 3rd, 2nd, I'm sorry. July 2nd.
July 6th.
That's on Monday.
So I don't understand, you're having a public, it's going to go to the planning board?
It's going to go to the county planning. County planning reviews any local
The
law.
county planning?
Yes.
Okay.
They review it.
where-
Quite often, they will just come back and say it's a local matter, but we still have to submit it to them.
So when it comes back then from that board and back to you guys, and then we're at a meeting again, a town meeting, right? So
It'll come back to the
then-
town board, we'll review their comments, if it's anything that they say, okay, you really should address this, we'll review the
So
comments.
have another conversation.
We can before we adopt it next month. Yes, we'll take it.
Will there be another, from what you just
There
said?
won't be another public hearing, this is the actual hearing, but what I will do is leave the public hearing open for another week for anybody to comment, if anybody would like to submit anything else in writing.
Yeah.
That makes it easier. So why don't we do that, we'll leave it up for one more week for written comments.
So the decision is made by the 5 of you, there's no vote, local vote on it?
That's correct.
That's true. That's the type of government that we have in New York. If you go to New England, you have a town hall or town meeting government, and everybody gets to vote on everything.
It takes forever.
Just gonna have that.
It's fun, but it
Anyway,
takes
I'd just like to make one comment.
We'll have to close it at the next meeting.
What?
So we'll just leave the public comment period open until the following month. And we'll close it. That way we can accept written comments and we can take the county planning and advisement before we act on it.
This discussion has been going on for quite a while. Normally, town board would discuss, write it, and then have a public hearing, and that's time when the public would get their comment. I'd like to commend Ray for over the past several months of allowing many people to talk outside of a public hearing, just making comments, and I think that helped us to mold the law to some extent. And I think it's it's going to work pretty well. If it doesn't, there's always opportunity to change. But I think it will work. We've had other laws that we've put in that were different than some other towns around. Our solar law, for example, some of the solar companies have actually told me they commended us and have tried to get other towns to adopt the law as we wrote it. Same way with our, on the windmills and things. And I think we have the same situation here. And again, I'd like to commend Ray for allowing the interaction of the people that have attended the town board meetings.
Well, I think it's been helpful that everybody's had some input, and we've tried to work through it, so it's been, I think it's been a good experience, and we try to do that, it makes it a little bit easier when it comes to the final product, so we already have some input at that point.
I'd just like to make one comment. I'm mainly concerned with the DBs. And I'd like to compliment the lady from Southwood. You have a beautiful piece of property, and I've been at one of your venues.
That's Mrs. Southwood.
And you control the music. You don't let it go out.
Oh, no.
Why would we want to disturb our neighbors? There's
Yeah,
no percentage in
but you
that.
see, but there still have to be limits. 2 weekends ago, I was whizzing by and there was a wedding here at that tin housey new structure,
Oh, yeah.
and it was quite loud. It was out of control, out of the whole structure. And then there was a wedding here at the schoolhouse, and the music boomed. So the dBs are very important. It's not a question that you may like jazz, or I may like a different kind of music, but you have to control the dBs so it doesn't annoy anybody. And Whitney, I didn't know that you were in control of that. I lived on West 67th Street. And we never heard the rowdy 15,000 New Yorkers, okay? Because you control the dBs. And it's a question of, there are more...
We couldn't control the sound of the fireworks, and nobody ever complained about the
You
fireworks.
never control fireworks. Fireworks are fireworks. But you have to understand that people aren't like you. And I've heard it. I purposely went and I heard it. It's annoying. You're disturbing the neighbors. There are more of us people in this community than there are venues. And we also pay our taxes like you do. We buy locally, we employ local people. Some of us work locally. So that's what's important. And we're really in the majority.
May I just jump
And
in?
that's why we're actually putting this in
I
place.
just wanted, you
That's
know,
why we've done that.
May I just interject is that I'm entirely open to measuring the dBs. This is an area I really have no knowledge of. I just have to, as a joke, a little bit aside, and I think it was 2014, we had one wedding, it was the year of the 17-year locust. Talk about dBs, you could not hear yourself speak. How many dBs was that?
when I
That was
first
too
bought
loud.
my
It was
own
over
property,
What?
Well, that's
they
another
don't hear the locust.
And they don't follow the cut on.
But it's just important that you people are cognizant of how loud that is. And not everybody is that considerate. And it was a fact 2 weekends ago. I heard it.
I'm happy to measure the average and present that information to you. It sounds like it's really an issue where there's subtlety, and I would be more than happy to present our findings. We limit our guests to no more than 150, so you're not having to amplify to 300 people. I think that helps a lot. We also need speakers away from, you can make hills can be like a soundboard. We have to go.
I have to catch something, so I'm
Thank
getting...
you so much for
Okay.
hearing us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perhaps it would be a way to have things later but lower. I mean, maybe we could compromise on time and volume. There may not be a reason to have venues end at 10, but maybe they could drop the sound and they can stay there till 3.
The sound should be inside the venue.
We could do some sort of a compromise. I think the venue could go on, but it could drop to a cocktail level. And could we compromise someplace?
We could certainly consider that. We certainly be glad to see what the county planning comes back with, and we'll consider all the comments at that point. She's now got all kinds of comments. You got one more?
Hi. No, I'm just not clear on what the current level is.
We don't have one.
Oh, there's not one.
There's nothing. That's why we're passing.
And there's never been one.
No decibel limit.
There's no
That's why it was
decibel.
that's why it was introduced to the board. Because we had to have some control over it, because...
And there's no time limit either?
Clermont has not.
There's just, okay.
We're one of the few towns.
All right, you looking at me?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm looking
I think we're looking over. Michael Serapica, I work in psychiatry up at Columbia Memorial. Two things. Firstly, I'm wondering if someone who's schooled in science, for example, Evan, could explain to the committee the actual meaning of the scale of decibel levels, that it's not a linear progression, but it's a geometric progression. That the difference between 65 decibels and 75 decibels isn't a difference of 10 decibels, it's a difference of, what would that be, 1,000-fold? I forget, but it's a three-dimensional, exponential, much larger.
Really loud.
We had that explanation from our engineer was here with an actual sound meter.
Okay.
Set up right here and demonstrated.
So it's not incremental,
Right.
the difference that we're discussing, it's pretty huge. The other issue is the impact that noise has generally on mental health. I can speak from a perspective of having some more intimate knowledge of that. I think two things, just the experience of being in your home, which you perceive as a safe refuge, and being invaded by noise that's of a certain duration, is in and of itself undermines one's mood stability. The other issue is when the noise is unpredictable, it's even a much greater magnitude because you have a sense of loss of control in your own house. So I think we all value the fact that we live in a beautiful area and the perception of noise is really an intrusion upon that. So for the benefit of the mental health of this community, I think we have to tread carefully in terms of the way this decision is being decided.
Okay. All right, thank you for your comment.
Just got a lot of patience.
Okay.
Well,
All right, we're going to, like I said, I'm going to leave this public hearing open for written comment. Anybody like to put anything else in writing and submit it to us before the next meeting? And then, like I said, when we get the county planning, we'll have to review everything. And at the next meeting, we will make a decision on this.
Right. Do we need to have a separate public hearing for the zoning portion of the law?
That's what we're doing.
Okay.
Yep. So I'd like to close, I'm sorry, I'm not closing it. We'd like to move on to local law number 3 for the amending the Clermont zoning law, pertaining to the noise ordinance. Mary, you still have that public notice here, please?
Same.
Same?
Same one.
Same
Yeah,
thing?
it's on there, yes.
Yeah, she read it.
Okay.
I should mention both of them.
All right, so this is nothing more than altering the zoning law to accommodate the new ordinance into the legislation. I don't know if there's any comment on that at this point.
No, I don't have the old one with me.
The one thing that's in there that is additional is it allows for the zoning board to grant a variance if there is reasonable need to do so, to go a little louder.
To go louder than 75.
I'm sorry, Bob, could you repeat what you said?
The zoning board in this new law can allow application for a variance. Okay, now a variance says if it's consistent with the surrounding area, I mean, so if you've got a wedding venue that is way out somewhere and for some reason you think you need to go louder, you can come and ask the zoning board for a variance. It doesn't mean you'll get it. You might, you may not. And there would be a public hearing relating to that variance also.
Well, not necessarily louder, but maybe for a longer period of time.
Could be for a longer
Something
period.
outside of.
Outside the normal scope.
So we're saying that there would be a variance that allows you to go above 75 decibels
It could
and
be
longer than
It
11
could be,
p.m.
or it could be to go to midnight instead of
So,
11.
I mean, and that would be available arguably to anybody who applied, right? I mean, they may not get it.
Anybody can apply,
Right.
but
So
there would be a
isn't that
public
kind of
hearing,
defeat the point
and
of
there
legislation?
would certainly be consideration of how close the neighbors are and how much
75.
disruption it's going
Bob,
to cause.
at this time, also, you bring up a very good point. The wedding here at the schoolhouse, did they know that they were very loud? You see, no one mentioned anything. So I think that when you have a wedding here, what should be in this package is that anybody who has a wedding at our schoolhouse, they have to keep it at a very low level.
Well,
Okay,
certainly
and
everybody will
it's
get a
a
copy of the noise ordinance from coming forward
Yeah,
once it's approved.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, when I passed by, it was really wild. These people didn't know. They had a boom box.
And that was allowed before the
Right.
law.
Right now, there's
That's
no law
allowed.
to prohibit
That's
that.
why we're putting a law in, so that we can control that to some extent.
75, and
It's loud.
70 is a vacuum cleaner. So, I mean, it's very loud.
Yeah.
You can go on and get the list of,
That's at the property line. So you step back 20 feet, it's not
Sounds
75.
but it also depends, like here where it's so flat, It's one thing.
It's sound travel.
I feel we're lucky we're in like a little bowl, so it doesn't get us as much, but I'm not here just to talk about myself. I'm really here, as Michael is, to talk about quality of life for everybody.
And I think that's what's really important. These two people who have venues, you've never heard any complaints about them at all. But you've got to control some of the sound when it's very close.
Well, they have lots of land around them.
Yes.
We're working
They
on
have
that.
embankments.
What
and
I'd
they
like to
have
do is take the comments on this one, if
Yeah.
we can, please. Everything is subject to a variance. If you want to apply for variance, you can go in and apply for variance. This is just putting it into the law that it's allowed. So, I mean, it's really nothing out of the scope of, what's allowed to do.
That would
So-
refer
But
to.
variance would apply to special events, a baseball game or something like that.
Anything, if you want to have a birthday party or something, say you're going to have a band there and you're going to go late, or if you're going to be louder, you can apply for it. Doesn't mean you get approved, it just means you can apply for it.
Or
That's
the
all.
town of Clermont is going to have a big 4th of July
Right.
celebration.
Right.
So
Be
the town will
very,
issue a variance to its own self, maybe.
Is there not a possibility to not only define the parameters of time, when it starts, when it ends, the decibels, but also the kind of location of the venue? Because if it's Southwood and you're on 200 acres, this other gal, I don't know where her place is, but it seems that it's similar, or if it's here where there are 12, 15 houses right next to it, that again, referring to the city of New York, when I did an event in Central Park, it was a very different ordinance from if I did an event in a pocket park, where there were, buildings right around it. So you're really looking at, it's a small town, but there are parts that are wildly rural, and then we have this little sort of village.
I think that's the intent of the DB level being at the property line. So if you've got 200 acres,
The property
the
lines.
property line, you may not even hear the event. So that's the idea of taking the measurement at the
But
property.
it still has to be contained, Chris.
No, I agree with that. I'm just trying to explain.
No, that's a very
that
good point,
We're
Chris.
referring to 200 acres as
Yes.
opposed to 1 acre.
Thank you. And then how is it enforced? If you go there and say, I'm a citizen, and I'm with Michael, I'm about to lose my mind, and he's gonna, give me therapy, or my husband's gonna lock me in the closet. And, either way, it's both probably good solutions. But, how is it enforced?
Well, a complaint has to be called in, and then we will have to go out, we're going to have a measuring
By that
equipment.
point, aren't we crazy and I'm in the
Well,
closet?
it could possibly be, but if somebody is in violation, then what we do is probably have to set up at the next event when they start it and make sure we monitor and then go from there. But we will go out and try to get it that evening if it's possible.
Wait a minute.
So can we go as citizens? Because certainly, again, when I had that job, if somebody came to me and said, wow, this is so loud, I would say, okay, here we go, turning Blondie down right now. Let's just, calm it down. Nobody stopped dancing, I can tell you that.
We got lots of questions.
I just,
It's a big deal.
Let's fill this guy first.
Phyllis first?
Yes.
Okay.
Ray, if you had an event one time at your place, and it was very, very loud, and there were complaints, it's gone. You don't have events all the time, so you would not be penalized, because knowing the code enforcement person can't get there. So wait a minute, so when you say the property line, even on 200 acres, but sound does travel. These two women keep it kind of quiet, okay? But that's not what's happening. So how would you regulate that one person who has that event, who has destroyed the whole neighborhood? I mean, there's some people.
But you want to be able to create a law that is inclusive, that is
You
not
can certainly call the sheriff's office, they can respond to a loud, and then we have noise ordinance in place, they'll go to that, and, we'll have to work through it. It's going to be very difficult, to tell you the truth. If you call at 10 o'clock at night, and you want to try and catch somebody, turn it off at 10:15, we're not going to catch them. But, I mean, this is, we can't make it bulletproof. We'll do the best we
You have to
can.
keep the DBs down so you don't run into that
Do the
problem.
best we can, Sarah.
I just want to say that I did test with the meter at the property line and on my porch. The event was louder on my porch than at the property line, because the way the sound traveled, because we're on a higher level, I guess, and something happens to it. So it's complicated, that's all I'm saying. So it's, you know, we need to think through things to make this.
Right,
a
and if
real
you have a venue,
place. I mean,
it should be kept inside your own parameters. That's all I'm saying. If I play music, I have people come over to my home and sing. The windows are closed.
Everyone's a
No
bad
one
singer
hears
at your house, Phyllis.
No one hears it. No one hears it. I had a wedding in New York in a brownstone. We had to have, we could not have certain kinds of bands there because it would go outside of that building and annoy the neighbors. Fact. So, you know, you're talking about more of us than the venue people. And that's what we're really talking about.
And we're trying to put some legislation in place to protect everybody.
One-
That's what we're.
Thank you for listening and for giving us time.
Yes.
So, any other comments on the variance local law? Mary?
Purpose of a variance is to give relief when something is over strict for a certain project, a certain event. There are going to be times when there's a religious service, perhaps that's a sunrise service. And who knows, folks may want to greet the dawn with a bit of noise. The point is that there has to be a relief valve for every law, and that's the purpose of the variance. So I just voice
Very
my
nice.
support for having a variance.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add that maybe we could, in terms of promoting the virtues of this area and marketing it, that we could market peace and quiet as one of the values of living in Clermont. Promote that.
Very nice.
Just a quick thing, I mean, given that so many of the towns in Columbia County have either an earlier stop time, or lower decibel levels, I just want to throw out that I hope we're not looking to market ourselves as the wedding capital of Columbia County. Like, come here, folks, you can play all night.
Yeah,
loud.
turn it up
You
and
know?
just
Yeah, I
really-
mean, and it seems that if so many have adopted a particular level, you know, it must be working. It must be working. I mean, the woman who presented the figures for Columbia County, not Clermont, but Columbia County, you know, it was up. It was up despite 10 o'clock, despite not 75 but 65. So, I don't know, just, I mean, it would be a mistake, I think, to look to promote ourselves not as the peace and quiet town, but as the get down town. Get downtown.
All right, thank you.
I have one more technical question, I'm sorry to drag this out, but.
On the variance.
Yes, is this going to affect aviation? Because I often have helicopters flying over on property. And literally, you feel the windows in the house.
Yeah,
Really?
I have that too.
I thought they were looking for pot.
It's literally, it's that low frequency vibration, and they circle around. And I'm like, wow, that's loud. That's, you know, my windows are rattled.
It's the pot.
Does the law stop at a certain altitude?
I have no idea.
They have
Answer that.
variances. Anybody, law
Mary doesn't
enforcement,
answer.
no, law enforcement have a variance.
No,
They do.
that falls under federal aviation
Right.
Okay,
law,
all right,
which feds trump town.
okay.
So
And also the police
Right.
sirens fall under that same
Any
variance.
emergency
So
services.
anything like that,
There's
that's
exceptions for
an
emergency
existing
services.
variance.
There's exceptions in the law for emergency services.
Yeah.
Yeah, but these
Yeah,
helicopters
basically,
are not
what we have
emergency.
right
They
now-
were emergency to find that pot.
What we have right now
No,
in
there's
this
a police
town,
helicopter.
you can make as much noise as you want. There is something in the zoning law today that says you can't have obnoxious noise, but that's very subjective. So what we basically have right now is you make as much noise as you want at any time of the day or night that you want. We're going to try to control it, and we've tried to bring it into the best control we can without going overboard and hurting people that are in business. If it turns out after sometime that it's not enough, it can always be modified. And I know somebody said here, well, you'd rather get it right the first time? Yes, we would. We think we have at this point, and
You think you have?
It's not, well, it's not quite right yet.
I think you've heard from a lot of people that that level of decibels is not working,
Yeah.
and that there are towns around where they are lower and they are still making some really good money. And, you know, if everything that everybody said, that the conclusion you've come to is that it's working, then I certainly, for one, was not well spoken.
Okay, well, you know, we tried to pick a level that we thought was fair. There is other towns that are higher, 90 decibels actually is the town. I was misspoken last meeting. I said Canaan, I was wrong. It's actually the town of Chatham.
Chatham?
Yes,
Chatham.
but they just passed across the board
I
90
think that
days.
Chatham's, that's because the fair drives their top end. So again, as somebody who's done public events, if you have an event like the county fair in Chatham, which would necessitate a very high decibel count, that then rains down on all the rest of it. And I'm
There
sure
would be a
that
variance for that. They wouldn't take the whole town and put it at 90 because of the.
they might take that as a high end given and then have lower pieces to it. I mean, I haven't read it, so I, you know.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
So they have the demolition derby, and they have.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go with a comment on the variance. I will actually close the public hearing on that one. And then again, that will be going to review for county planning. We'll get both of these back with their comments and review the rest of the comments at the next board meeting and make a determination as far as moving forward, adopting or modifying at this point. So,
Right, does the application for the variance, that's the zoning board that would grant that? Or does you guys do?
zoning board takes care of it. Yeah. Yeah, we just set the legislation, then they go by the legislation. So. Okay, the public hearing being closed, I'd like to call our meeting to order for the June meeting. Let's salute the flag, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, before we get started, give everybody time to clear out of here. We're going to have to take a quick executive session to discuss contract negotiations. So I'd like to go a motion for executive session.
So move.
Second?
Good, how you doing?
All in favor? Okay, I'll entertain the motion to come out of executive session.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Yeah, Wendy,
Bob? Chris,
Yeah, take your
either way.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to apologize first for not having any agendas out because my printer decided not to work before I came tonight. Luckily, I had all the reports printed, but I did not get the agenda printed, so.
Thank you, Ray, for sending me the Steve Hudson report.
Oh, good.
And
Good,
I
you got
sent it
that.
to other people.
And you got the local laws, you got everything else.
Thank you.
Good, no problem. Okay, so let's get started with the approval of the prior town board minutes. Mary?
Yes.
So moved.
Do I do them?
No.
I'm just going to point out the misspelling of my daughter's name.
Is it with a K?
No, that's how you spell it because that's how I spell mine. So I just
It's
assumed
a
you
C.
spelled it the same way as mine, but
It is a C.
it is C-H-R.
Okay.
Christina, not Christine.
Christina.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. With that correction, any other corrections,
No,
comments? Motion approved?
Move to approve as corrected.
second.
Second, all in favor?
First, second? Go.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain since I was not here.
Okay.
Right.
Okay,
Very good.
approved. All right. Now we can go to the communications. Let's do clerk report first.
Yes.
Please.
I'll do the clerk.
We'll do clerk report.
Okay. Town clerk's report for May 2018. Planning board for site plan review, $75. Dog licenses, $10. Building permits, $1,340. Certificates of occupancy, $225. Town clerk fees for marriage license, $17.50. Community house donations, $200. DEC for fishing licenses, $1.93. Games of Chance license, $20. Total for general fund, $1,889.43. Paid to New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets, $4. Paid to New York State Department of Health, marriage license, $22.50. Paid to the New York State Comptroller for Games of Chance license, $30. And paid to DEC for a fishing license, $33.07. Total for May, $1,979.
Very good. Thank you, Mary. Okay, we'll move on to mail review. What do you got, anything?
Okay, we will have our program for, that's sponsored by the Columbia County Clerk, Holly Tanner, Keeping Identities of Seniors Safe. The dates for this quarter, June 11th to June 29th. During my hours here, Thursday 6 to 8 p.m., or Saturday 10 a.m. to noon. You may bring your documents that you want shredded and just deposit them in the unit that they're going to bring here and have your documents shredded for safety reasons.
Will she be here?
Pardon?
Will Holly? No. The Holly Tanner.
Oh, no. But all the
This
towns
is-
that
yes.
participate, she's pretty much sponsored this,
Right.
I bought it,
Yes.
you know, so.
And what date is that again?
That'll be between June 11th and June 29th. The container will be here. I mean, any other time, if you come for planning board or zoning board, you bring your stuff, you can put it right in. But as long as the town hall's open.
And the container is locked, it's secure.
Right,
so
it's locked,
You deposit your
secured.
stuff through the slot, and then they come and they open it up and shred everything, and it's a good program. It's been in place now for a few years, and a lot of people take advantage of it, so it's very nice.
Excellent, but I didn't know about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, we just started
I
in
just
December. Was the
just
first time.
start shredding.
No, don't do that. Very bad for your hands.
No, it's actually good exercise.
Now, bring it here, you put it right in yourself, and they take it and they shred it. Okay, and I will not be here on Saturday, June 9th. I know, these family things, I don't know, gotta be there for the great-grandchildren and the grandchildren.
Mary, is it too late to buy a ticket for the state dinner?
I don't have anything to do with that, they don't give me any.
You better call a fireman at this point, because
Yeah.
I think the cutoff was today, but you may be able to find one that has a ticket left. Call Jim Potts.
Who?
Jim Potts, James
Jim
Potts,
The senior.
senior.
Or Riley.
Want his number?
Yes.
537?
527.
537.
537.
Yeah, 6660.
6660.
6-6.
And you
60.
said that I should call him.
Give him a shot. He's your best bet.
Okay.
Yeah,
Call him tonight.
because that is,
Call them now.
that is this Saturday.
It is a Saturday. I was going to say that, yeah, we're just going to remind everybody. And since you brought it up, this Saturday is Saturday, June 9th, the Clermont Steak Barbecue is going to take place. But I think it may be too late for tickets, so hopefully you already got them.
And I can't go because of other family,
Steak Barbecue at Clermont Firehouse.
Oh, okay, I thought you said something else.
and that's going to be 6 o'clock,
6:30.
6:30 to 6:30. Okay, and then this correspondence from Red Hook Central School District. They're advising us that Kate Courtbus was elected to the Red Hook Central School District Board of Education for a 3-year term commencing July 1st, running through June 30th, 2021. That was after the elections. This unfortunately is too late because there was a public hearing for the town of Red Hook May 30th.
Okay, you can stop.
So it was on a zoning issue,
Okay,
and that's all I have.
all right.
I will be closed on Saturday, June 19th. I just want to make that clear, and it is posted on the website.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mary.
Okay.
Correspondence to Web Committee. We have any comments, suggestions, complaints for the Web Committee? Not at this point? All right, great. Move on to committee reports. Bob?
Yeah, we did have a meeting of the park committee. We had about 8 or 9 people there, I think. And had a good discussion. We did not get to walk the property because it was a rainy day. And I encourage people to do that on their own. I know some have. And we will have another meeting. Phyllis informed me tonight that there was a smaller subcommittee that was working on a survey that they want to do online. And that the survey is basically ready, so I'll pick another date and try to schedule another meeting. And we had some discussion of, possible things that might go on out there. Mentioned, as we've mentioned in the past, the Veterans Monument and some beautification, and not doing a softball field now, but there's, I think you'll probably see a little more about that later, but we're talking about probably a soccer field. There's been some request and interest in that. And that's about it at this point.
Okay. Bob? Devin, you have any on the web committee? Can you wait the public comment? Thank you.
Nothing really on the web committee this time due to the way the schedule fell and the holiday weekend. We canceled.
Bless you.
Sorry.
Good, all right. Chris, you got anything?
Excuse me.
Bless you. Dawn?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Old business, not a ton to discuss. I just want to mention, Bob just brought up, I should call it, but our old business is the ball field, soccer field, the park development committee. We're looking at what options to do over there, but all along we were thinking at first we were going to do possibly a softball field. The league has told us obviously there was a lack of interest in that at this point, so we decided not to go with that. But there is ongoing demand and more demand for a soccer field. So we've talked about this in the past. I know we've brought it up a few times. It's very simple, a lot less maintenance as far as anything we put in anyway. But basically all you do is mow it, strike the field, and put up some goal nets, and you have a soccer field. So I have discussed this with the Little League, the Soccer League, and they said they would be willing to help out with purchasing nets and goals. And I just ran it by the board, want to run it by the board tonight to further have that discussion, maybe get some numbers, and possibly find out what it would be to at least get one set of posts up so we could actually start using that. I know there's been interest from other people in town as well, so I mean it is something that's been requested, and I think it's a very inexpensive thing for us to put in to accommodate a lot of the town people as well. So just going to let everybody know that we're going to go ahead and look at that.
This is in regard to the park committee.
Yes.
That I think everybody at the park committee, including Bob, we're talking about trees, we're talking about flowers, we're talking about monuments. And I just want to remind you that our population, our Little League population has decreased. So that's why your daughter's suggestion was great about taking a survey, which Sarah's in charge of, because I think there are many other people who also felt that the park